One thing we know about technology is that it is changing quicker than most of us can keep up with. The reality is that the jobs that our students are going to have in the next 5, 10, 15 years are going to depend on them having a strong STEM background. Although we can talk about STEM and do our best in the classroom, it's really difficult sometimes with the price of technology to really show students in person how this technology is relevant for them.
School is meant to teach kids, how to be good people, but also I feel like it should also be preparing kids for the future, and the future is going to come no matter whether or not we like it or not. And I feel like STEM is the future.
The Advancing Sciences event has been a fantastic opportunity for North High School. The first time when we signed up for it, we didn't really know what to expect. We knew we'd have an opportunity to work with local medical technology companies, and then the opportunity to win grant money, we knew that would be great too. We knew that we had an access and equity issue with technology at North, and we were hoping that could help address that issue at our school. For students who just need to find more success in their math and science classrooms, the grant money has supported the usage of graphing calculators in students who might not have had the chance to use that technology to explore mathematics and science on a deeper level. The grant money has opened up the doors for a lot of students who wouldn't have that access, and suddenly they now can use the technology they need to be competitive with their peers.
Last year, what we did with the grant money is we spent it on buying parts for 3D printers. We built 4 of them. They're all custom built here at North. And so as many as 20 students have their hands on these printers.
It's really rare to find opportunities like this in high school where anyone can be a part of it. It's sometimes a very selective process, and not a lot of people get the opportunity to do so or don't have the funding to go do it. This year's event, working with the catheters, was really cool, kind of getting to see what they do in the operation room and really seeing what goes on between the actual heart itself and the tools used to do those operations is really neat.
For me, I feel like the best way to learn is go to actual professionals, ask them questions about it, learn from them as well. This event, it's almost impossible to describe, the impact it has in words, because of the fact that there's so many people you're touching when these grants are given out. The idea of us getting our own, starting bio 3D printing is all of a sudden possible. The idea of us going to all these businesses and having, like mentorships, and for us going and starting, different programs, now they're actually possible. And before, they were just a thought, but they weren't actually practical.
What's so powerful about the Advancing Sciences event is that it finds a common place for students and for companies to come there, combine their ideas, and really explore what's possible.
Well, welcome to the final session of this year's Advancing Sciences. I'm Stephanie Board. I'm a VP of R&D at Boston Scientific and one of the co-chairs of this event. The other you can see on the screen there is Randy Schistel, who's also a VP of R&D at Boston Scientific. We had an incredible week, and I want to take a moment to thank the students, the business professionals, and sponsors that made all this possible. Just a quick reminder, closed captioning is available for today's program. And as you saw in the opening video, Advancing Sciences really engages students in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. The AHA provides funding to ensure all students have this opportunity and can consider a career in STEM, which is very important, at least for Randy and I. Donations that you make to support the Advancing Heart Association help events like Advancing Sciences, the Grant Challenge, and supports young entrepreneurs. The AHA is one of the largest funders of medical research. Most grants go to young investigators who build on the success of their work to earn larger grants. These grants lead to scientific breakthroughs and advanced knowledge of heart and brain health. To date, 14 scientists funded by the American Heart Association have won a Nobel Prize, including 10 for research AHA wholly or partially sponsored. So today, if you can, your gift will help us to continue this legacy for generations to come. The bright minds we have met this week could lead the scientific discoveries of tomorrow. To make a donation, please text ADSCI to 41444 or visit the link in the chat box. I'm going to now turn it over to you, Randy.
Steph, it's been an honor to co-chair this year's Advancing Sciences series with you. We've enjoyed the workshops and demonstrations, the speakers, the mentoring, the videos, the engagement with the students. It's been a great week. My name is Randy Schustel. I also work for Boston Scientific in the Research and Development Group. And Steph and I have the privilege of bringing new products to market, bringing new products to physicians and patients worldwide. It's an exciting career, and I'd recommend it to all of the students on the call today. I want to thank you again for joining us and remind you of a few housekeeping items. We ask that you please remain muted and leave your camera off today. We do, however, encourage you to interact through the chat box. Make sure your chat box is set to everyone, and please be respectful with your comments. You can also modify your screen using the controls just to the left of the participant box. Now we invite Sarah Sanchez, AHA's Community Impact Director, and Jess Nolan, Government Relations Director, to join us and talk about some of the American Heart Association's work in Minnesota. Welcome, Jess and Sarah.
Thank you, Steph, Randy, and all the business leaders in attendance today, and each of the students that are able to join us. One of the students here today could be one of the next innovators to help prevent heart disease and stroke. And the American Heart Association is committed to ensuring that all Americans have equal opportunity for STEM careers and also have access to safe places to exercise and the opportunity to make choices that lead to good overall health. You've probably heard about the ways that the American Heart Association has been working to improve people's lives by preventing and treating heart disease and stroke through research and improved clinical guidelines and medical advances. But we also recognize that a lack of equitable access to resources has and always will keep us from reaching our goals. So we must address social determinants of health. Social determinants of health are the conditions in which people are born, they grow, live, work, and age that influence their health outcomes. For example, the American Heart Association, which I'm sure you know, recommends eating a balanced diet that includes fresh fruits and vegetables. But there are many communities in Minnesota that exist in food deserts, which means they don't have access to fresh and affordable foods, making it difficult or impossible to actually eat a healthy diet. Food insecurity can lead to serious health complications, and people facing hunger are often forced to choose between spending money on food or their medical care. And we know that health doesn't happen in a vacuum, and social determinants of health impact all aspects of a person's life, including how long they live. That's why zip code matters. When it comes to living longer, healthier lives, neighbors can be worlds apart. In the Twin Cities, for example, if you live in the Rondo neighborhood in St. Paul, your average life expectancy is about 65 years. Similarly, if you live in Minneapolis's Elliott Park neighborhood, your life expectancy is about 67 years. However, if you live just 16 miles away in the suburb of Medina, you can expect to live to 92. Why is that? Because those living in Rondo and Elliott Park often lack access to affordable housing, healthy food, healthcare, and safe places to exercise. STEM education has an important part to play in the path to health equity and solutions around social determinants of health. Innovation in technology is going to provide new ways for patients and providers to interact outside the clinic. Engineering advances will bring transportation to areas that aren't currently developed, allowing additional access routes for medical care. And science and mathematics will create more affordable and widely available medical imaging solutions, treatments, and prevention measures. So no matter what your career or professional path looks like, we encourage you to think about health equity in ways that you can create solutions and make sure that health is more easily accessible to everyone. That includes knowing about the risks of tobacco and vaping.
I'm Will. I'm a senior in high school right now, 17.
I'm Claire. I'm 16. I'm a junior.
I was 14 when I started vaping. I had smoked cigarettes before for a while. So when they were like, hey, it's the same thing, it's just safer, it's fine, it's like water vapor, there's less nicotine. None of those things are true. So I tried it, and the first thing you notice is how much smoother it feels. It doesn't feel as dangerous as a cigarette does.
Yeah, so for me, I've always been like kind of a goody-goody. I've never been the type to like think to use or like engage in rebellious behaviors. Well, I started vaping when I was probably in 8th or 9th grade. It started through sports, honestly, just people on my team, like that was who I was with most of my time. I didn't like it at first, it hurt, I coughed, I was like, this is icky. Like, I was like, it's not my thing.
I mean, as I've gotten more and more into this, I have also noticed how little people know. People will confidently say things that are not correct. Strawberry menthol was my favorite. It tasted like candy, and it had like the cool sensation from menthol.
Why I want to do this video is to like tell people that like you may think it's not going to get out of hand, but it will. And you may think that it's only like this day and I'll quit after this week.
For me, my motivation is mostly to prevent people from succumbing to the mental illness that is addiction, to becoming dependent on a chemical. When I first started, I was a cross-country runner and a cross-country skier. I was on varsity in cross-country skiing in 8th grade. I loved it, but my lung capacity was never the same. After I started, it felt like I was getting out of shape, but I knew I wasn't. Like, I was wondering why these hills were leaving me more out of breath than they used to. I didn't put 2 and 2 together for months. The scary thing is, it's so new that there hasn't been time for long-term studies. So really, we don't know what it does to people.
I got to the point where I would go through 3 pods a day, which would be, like, my pods held about, like, 2 milliliters. And so 2 milliliters of juice, if you, like, look it up, is equivalent to, like, a pack of cigarettes worth of nicotine. And so, technically, I was inhaling 3 packs worth of nicotine. I had no idea. Like, I didn't know that there was that much in what I was using. I got so scared, but I was too scared to tell anyone that this was happening to me because I knew I was going to get in trouble. I hated it, and yet the addiction was so strong that I kept using. And my parents, they did not have the reaction I thought. Like, I thought that they were going to get so mad. Like, I thought that they were going to be like, what the heck, Claire? Like, you need to, like, get your life together. Like, we thought you were so much better than this. But, like, no, my mom was like, she sat me down and I talked to my mom and my dad for, like, a solid, like, 2 hours. I get it. Other teens get it. Everyone around you gets it. Like, it is not easy. And life is not easy. Like, school's not easy. Friendships are not easy. But you need to make it through this hard point in your life so that you can have your future. And addictive chemicals aren't going to help you get there. Like, addictive chemicals, they're going to cause barriers. And whether or not you see it now, like, it's not going to get you to where you want to be.
All right. So my name is Jess Nolan. I'm the Government Relations Director in Minnesota. And one of the top priorities that we're working on at the state legislature this year is on flavored tobacco and removing the sale of all flavored tobacco products, including mint and menthol. Lisa, next slide, please. So the good news, fewer teens are smoking traditional cigarettes than ever before. The bad news, once e-cigarettes were introduced, youth tobacco rates skyrocketed. So 1 in 4 high school age kids are reporting tobacco use. So why is it so important that we want to work on removing the sale of flavored tobacco products? Those are the products that youth are going to. They are starting with flavors. They aren't going towards the tobacco. Nearly all youth cigarette users are reporting using flavored tobacco products because with flavors and menthol, it's smoother going down your throat and it's a cooling sensation and the flavors taste good. And like you heard Will and Claire say in the video, all tobacco products contain nicotine, which is extremely harmful for the adolescent brain. And like Claire said, 1 pod of the juice contains at least the equivalent of a pack of cigarettes, which would be 20 cigarettes, and she was going through 3 a day. Next slide. So what we know about menthol in youth. Menthol makes cigarettes easier to smoke and harder to quit. We're hearing reports of young menthol smokers saying that they would quit if menthol cigarettes were banned. And then the health disparities continue to increase in communities of color and low-income neighborhoods where menthol cigarettes are marketed extensively. There are more tobacco retailers that exist in low-income populations. The more stores selling tobacco means more exposure to marketing and promotion. So youth in these neighborhoods are seeing about 10 times more tobacco ads than their counterparts. And they're also seeing these ads on all of their social platforms, and some social platforms are even giving them coupons to purchase these products. Next slide, please. So what can be done? Right now, what's happening in Minnesota is we've been working with local communities to reduce and restrict the sale of flavored tobacco products. Right now, we're at about 16 or 17 cities in Minnesota that have done some sort of restriction, whether restricting the sale totally or restricting flavors to adult-only shops. What we want done at a state level is restricting the sale of all flavored tobacco products, including mint and menthol. So we want to cover every single tobacco product. This is e-cigarettes, flavored cigars, chew, making sure that mint and menthol is included. And we want to focus the enforcement and penalties on the retailers, not on the youth who are buying them. And then what Minnesota already does is require a tobacco retail license to ensure compliance. Next slide, please. So one thing you can do right now is you can text the keyword MN flavors, one word, to the number 46839. This will lead you to our statewide and local petition where you can fill out your information. Your home address will match you with your local lawmakers and your state lawmakers, as well as the governor, and this petition will be delivered to them during this legislative session. This is you asking the state to restrict the sale of all flavored tobacco products, including mint and menthol. Thank you. And thank you for attending Advancing Sciences. If you do sign the flavored tobacco petition and supporting the future of science.
Thanks, Jess. Now we're excited to introduce Jayshree Sate. Jayshree Sate is a corporate scientist at 3M and leads applied technology development for 3M's industrial adhesives and tapes division. She has a PhD in chemical engineering from Clarkson University in New York and holds 70 patents for a variety of sustainable innovations across various markets. Jayshree was appointed as 3M's first ever chief science advocate in 2018 and is using her scientific knowledge, technical expertise, and professional experience to advance science and communicate the importance and benefits of science in everyday life. She is also the author of a new book released this month, The Heart of Science, Engineering Footprints, Fingerprints, and Imprints, and proceeds from the sale will go to a scholarship for women of color in STEM. And with that, we will turn it over to Jayshree.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And start my video. Hope you can hear me and see me. All right. So thank you to the Advancing Sciences team for this opportunity, and thank you to the American Heart Association for your commitment to inspiring the next generation of scientists and innovators. And I hear that it's been quite the week, so congratulations on a successful pivot to a virtual event. If there's anything that hashtag 2020 has shown us, is that we need ingenuity and innovation, and we need science now more than ever before. So here we are, virtually all of humanity facing the same existential crisis. We are confronting the same fears, and we all await the same gift of science. So during this pandemic, let's see, why can't I forward my slide? There we go. So during this pandemic, what do you think? How has public's perception of science changed? Do you think that they view it more positively? Or do you think that they view it more negatively? Good question, right? In fact, it's so tricky that you can convince yourself either way. Believe me, I tried. As a science-minded person, there is no doubt in my mind that science will vanquish this pandemic, right? But during this strange infinite present that we are living through, it offers a great opportunity to study what the general public thinks about science. So that's what we did. And what we found is science is indeed having a moment. And of course, nobody wanted a global pandemic to happen to raise that public perception of science, but it has. And that is why exactly it is a great time to advocate for science and STEM equity. So let me explain what is going on. Science skepticism declined for the first time since we started tracking it 3 years ago. And as you can see here, skepticism was steadily rising till before the pandemic. But during the pandemic, it is down. And trust in science and scientists is the highest it has been. So now, as a very science-minded audience, you are probably thinking, good to know, science is being seen in a positive light. And you have all these questions, including, wait a minute, why is 3M doing these surveys? Well, at 3M, we are also committed to creating a more positive world with science, and we have a long-standing commitment to education and STEM equity in all the communities that we operate in. Just last year, we spent $41 million in a variety of initiatives across this education spectrum. And this year, you may have also heard, we announced a $50 million fund for social justice, and a key element there as well is STEM equity. See, the thing is, the world needs all the diversity of thoughts and experiences we can get in order to creatively solve the problems we face. And we need to unlock the secrets to a sustainable future. There will be, in 2050, 9 billion people on this planet. So STEM professionals and academics have a huge influence on shaping the world. And we have a lot of improvement on the STEM equity front, and it has a wide-ranging impact, including that on the talent pipeline of companies like 3M. And we are about science at 3M. It's our most distinguishing characteristic. It's what ties our businesses together, and it's the foundational strength behind our brand, science applied to life. So we care about science, science matters to us, and we wanted to understand what the global perception around science was. And we didn't find any studies that were relatively recent and global in nature, so we actually commissioned one. So we surveyed 14 countries in late 2017, 1,000 respondents per country, and you can see the countries here that are developed and developing. And the results have been really interesting, and let's just say thought-provoking. So if you're ready to hear what the world thinks about science, I'm going to tell you. Here goes. 4 out of 10 people surveyed globally said if science didn't exist, their lives would be no different. And I repeat, you heard me right. If science didn't exist, their lives would be no different, they said. And 32% of the people call themselves science skeptics. And in this population, 60% said if science didn't exist, their lives would be no different. Now get this. They were taking the survey on their laptops or mobile phones. So yes, you can pick your jaw off the floor. It's very clear that science is invisible, science is underappreciated, and science is taken for granted. That is the problem. People don't realize that all this wonderful technology that they so seem to enjoy the benefits of, and their cars and their microwaves and their coffee machines first thing in the morning, that it's fundamental science and research and application that allowed them to afford these benefits. Some other things that the people around the globe said. I was more excited about science as a child. In fact, many said that as an adult, I don't think there is any need for me to understand science. 36% of those surveys said only geniuses can have a career in science. So thank you, Albert Einstein, but no thanks. Because who do you think? Who do you think a label like this, a label of genius, deters the most? It's exactly those who are underrepresented in many STEM fields. And no surprise, across the globe, women trailed men in the positive sentiment for science. In fact, when asked if you could have a satisfying career in engineering, 25% of men agreed, but for women, it was only 9%. And I'm sure this is quite interesting to many women in the audience. And I stand before you as a woman engineer, certainly not a genius by any means, but with a very satisfying career in STEM. So we do have a lot of work ahead of us to change the narrative around STEM education and the narrative around STEM careers. Now, this was interesting. People don't care about science, but they want their kids to know more and would even recommend science careers. Wow, doesn't that feel like kicking the can down the road? And in fact, it was interesting. People want a lot from science. In fact, millennials really blurred the lines between science and science fiction. Science, can you please do these things for me? Flying cars, undersea living, teleportation. So you clearly see the issue. People don't appreciate science. They don't think it's important for their daily lives, but you kids, you better do science. And then there are high expectation of what science needs to deliver. It doesn't quite add up, does it? So these are just some of the results from 2018 that I'm sharing. There's a lot more there, but it was clear that science needs advocates. Science needs more champions. And it was clear that this is some data we can't keep close to our vest at 3M. This needs to be shared, and we need to foster a global conversation around this topic. So I was called upon to be the company's first ever chief science advocate. It was a brand new role that was created. So first thing, as an engineer, I broke down the problem like literally into A, B, and C. A is about raising awareness and appreciation and acknowledgement of science so we can move people from this apathy, you know. And the second area is, of course, breaking down biases and boundaries and barriers and beliefs. You know, I'm not a genius, I can't do science, or the left brain, right brain myth, I'm just not wired for science, or I'm a girl, I can't do science, science is not for me. All these are a big issue, right? And we see the portrayal of science in the media and scientists. You know, despite having 2 PhD scientists at home, my daughter said, I don't want to do science, that's for geeks. So the image of nerds and loners and mavericks and evil and genius, and often male scientists in media, isn't going to inspire little girls. So we have to address that. And finally, we have to focus on the context and champion and communicate that scientists solve problems. Science can improve lives. Again, I know from my own experiences how important this context was to my daughter, whereas the content was sufficient to motivate my son. My daughter always had many more questions about the why, while my son was happy with the what. Oh, and I should point out, that's me. It's the science of makeup and lighting. I own this image now because it impressed my daughter, and she thought I finally was the cool scientist, so whatever works. Now, I just shared some of the results. We just don't have time, but you can access this website and you see all the results over the years. So what have we been doing since we got these results in 2018? And again, I'm just going to give you a sampling here of what we have done. We compiled a Scientist as Storyteller's Guide that has tips from many very famous SciComm folks. We have Alan Alda. We also have Scott Kelly in there. Scott was the astronaut who spent a year in space, literally in the name of science. Katie Couric, who's a broadcast journalist. And they talk about some powerful concepts as it relates to science communication. And this guide is free and downloadable from the 3M website. So check it out. And that's me and Janet in the lab holding up one of my favorite tape products that we ever developed. We also host a podcast series, and here we just pick apart the results and discuss the why and the how and what to do about all these results with scientists and educators and thought leaders and inventors and innovators. And then we also do a video series called Beyond the Beaker. And this is where we profile diverse 3M scientists as everyday people. You know, that the scientists have same interests and hopes and desires as real people do. And we had to do that because of some of the data that was unearthed in the State of Science Index in 2019. Which said that scientists are elitists. So we had to make them more approachable. And I speak at a lot of events to take this message to the world and share the results of the survey. I mean, last year I went to about 7 countries. And we also focus on amplifying this message with women and underrepresented minorities. And this year, what we did is we created Science at Home series. And this is where we have diverse 3M scientists doing simple science experiments to keep kids engaged as they transition to distance learning. Kids can follow along. We use household materials. For example, my experiment used baking soda and vinegar to blow up a balloon. And then we talk about the science behind it and applications and practical examples. And then also, the fact that the bubbles in your pancakes are coming from a similar reaction. And these protocols were developed in partnership with the Bakken Museum in town. And then I also write. I write a lot. So please follow me on LinkedIn, and if the message resonates, please help us to amplify it. I write about topics such as science advocacy, and what I've learned is that we need to make the connection of science to everyday life and keep it in the forefront. Otherwise, it's taken for granted. We also need to make science feel more of a human endeavor as opposed to some strange ivory tower thing that a group of elite does. Because we can't have that chasm with the general public. It'll be an issue when we need the public to follow science, and we see how that has even played out now. And finally, it is important to keep talking about STEM and encouraging exposure and education. I also talk about the multifaceted issue of girls in STEM and women in STEM. Across the spectrum, there are certain issues, social conditioning, to early education, to STEM in college, STEM professionals, etc. And that we need more role models. We need to change the way it's taught, the way it is communicated. We need that it solves problems, that you can help others. In essence, the way I like to say it is that it's time for steam cleaning. S is for shattering of stereotypes. T is for telling the wholesome story about science. E is for providing exposure and environment. A is for allies and advocates. We need, boys and young men and men at work to be allies and advocates. It's not a zero-sum game. We will all benefit from it. And finally, M is for metrics and measures. We know, unfortunately, numbers just don't move, especially in some corporate and institutional environments without placing some metrics and measures in place. So I talk about these things we can all be doing as individuals to step up and help out. And I say that you don't have to be a scientist, a science graduate, or a science student. There's so much we can all do to support STEM. And here I mean sponsors, teachers, enthusiasts, and mentors. Just take this week as an example. Just to hold this event, it takes a village. And we can all help by lending our voice, by volunteering, by organizing, by inspiring, by championing, by engaging, and fostering that curiosity and wonder just by looking at the world around us. And we know how important it is to give our voice to advance science. As we see now, our lives and our livelihoods depend on it. So on that note, here we are, 2020, and you're probably thinking, so what did we find out in the 2020 results? We already talked about the first theme that I showed in my first slide, that the skepticism is down, trust is up, and the images of science is on the rise in 2020. We also see that after healthcare, people want science to address the environmental sustainability challenges. It remains top of mind for people. And 2 other themes emerge, perhaps brought into focus by what is happening around the world on the topic of social justice and inequity, especially in the US, as I will show you in a minute. And perhaps due to the raw and the revealing events that unfolded right here in Minnesota, that unmasked the pervasive nature of the virus that is systemic racism. Not to mention the disproportionate impact of coronavirus on the communities of color. In fact, I had an opportunity to host an American Heart Association webinar on that very topic earlier in the year. And finally, people want to address these issues, and they understand that for the advancement, the acceleration and adaptation and adoption of science-based solutions, we need STEM equity. And they want everyone to step up: government, academia, corporations. So in essence, the way I like to say it is that 2020 is the year to stem skepticism. And it's the year to really advocate for science and STEM equity, because people are primed. They seem ready and willing to do something about it, especially as these 4 key relationships have become evident as a result of our 3M State of Science Index 2020 survey. First, I call it science of health for health of science. With healthcare, in many ways, science gets personal. Our interest in our own health provides a way in to attract people to science more generally. And it provides a strategy for building an ongoing healthy relationship with the scientific process. You can communicate that it is dynamic and it relies on new data and ongoing debate and discourse and discussion, and that's just how it works. And once people have a higher understanding of how science works, then hopefully it can't be politicized that easily. Then they understand that why, as new recommendations and new studies become available, we do change our mind, and it is a great thing that we do that. Second is the technology and sociology of trust revelation. So we've all been very worried about the infodemic, right? Because during the pandemic, that risks undermining trust in science-based information. And what we found is that while technology gives people access to scientific information, the world remains mostly skeptical of social media as a primary source of scientific information. So this is great news, I think. Trust in science and scientists was the highest, and even corporations was high. So there's a clear opportunity for scientists and science-based companies to be visible, to be accessible, and to be active in their advocacy to bolster that foundation of public trust in science. Because trust is kind of an iffy concept, and nobody can really place a finger on what exactly it is. The third is engineering of sustainable solutions. During the pandemic, people saw images of nature thriving as humans took a pause. You know, I remember that image of dolphins in the Venice Canal, and there were images from India that, you know, people in the northern city could actually see the Himalaya peaks and things like that. So it's not surprising that outside of healthcare, environmental impact remains a top concern. Now is not the time to put sustainable solutions on the back burner, but to show the critical role of science in solving these sustainability challenges. And it gives a unique opportunity to attract underrepresented minorities to STEM and build a sustainable talent pipeline, because they have a higher affinity to communal and pro-social goals. And this is a very well researched and documented fact that underrepresented minorities will always show more affinity to pro-social goals. So it's a great win-win. And finally, the math of equality and accountability. There is a multiplier effect when everyone comes together to solve problems. Our findings suggest that most positive impact happens with shared responsibility when scientists and government and business leaders and NGOs and academic institutions and individuals pull together in the pursuit of common goals. So that is another call to action to show that pro-social science relies on the additive power for the greater good. And you can strengthen partnership and bolster the STEM ecosystem. So the pandemic pulse has really given science a lifeline of support, and now is the time to double down on our efforts to stem skepticism, to advocate for science and inclusive innovation with a focus on STEM equity. So I've given you my spiel. What's the real shtick? The real shtick is STEM: science, humanities, technology, engineering, and math. And this is very important, especially when virtually half of the world will only trust science that aligns with their beliefs. Science is not a belief system. And the only way to get us out of this trust paradox type situation is to advocate for science with a human context and promote STEM equity. And I'd like to close with my own attempts of making 2020 count. I have compiled my writings in this book launched last week. It's available on Amazon, heart of science, engineering footprints, fingerprints, and imprints. And all proceeds from the sales of my book will go to a scholarship for underrepresented minority women in STEM. It'll be administered by SWE. So I hope what I said resonates, and I also hope many of you will buy the book and support the cause. I feel strongly about these issues because I don't think of myself as, I never did, as a science and engineering type when I was growing up. I just wanted to help people and improve lives and make the world a better place. And I naturally gravitated to fields where I felt this contextual pull was strong. And I frankly did not see that in STEM fields because that's just not how they were talked about. I did end up in STEM, but I have made this communal mindset really the cornerstone of my success. Because without that, what I feel is what psychologists have called communal goal incongruity. You just feel that something isn't right. You're not working on something you thought you would be working on. Your work lacks purpose. And the more I talk to women and underrepresented minorities and younger folks, the more I find out how much it resonates with so many. So we have to make the communal context of science more visible. And the fact that a career in science, the pursuit of science, helps community, it helps society, and it helps humanity. Today, I'm at the highest level at 3M, and the 4th woman ever and the 1st woman engineer to ever achieve this level. I am the science and engineering type. In fact, this picture is from when they were filming the 3M brand campaign. And if for some reason I look familiar or my voice sounds familiar, yes, as my kids say, I'm the lady from the 3M ads that you may have seen playing. And in each of these ads, I basically wanted to highlight exactly that. How my work helps people, how we build on ideas working collaboratively to dispel the myth of that loner scientist, and also how science is a journey, not that one aha genius moment. So thank you so much. And since many of you are students, I want to share one of these ads that I really enjoyed filming the most because we did it in a science class at a school in Woodbury.
I recently spoke to a group of students about being a scientist at 3M. I wanted them to know that innovation is not just about that one aha moment. Science is a process. It takes time, dedication. It's a journey. We're constantly asking ourselves, how can we do things better and better? What we make has to work. We strive to protect you. At 3M, we're in pursuit of solutions that make people's lives better.
Thank you for this great presentation, first and foremost. I mean, what great timing in terms of science and data, and wow, really inspirational. With that said, we have some questions for you from the audience here.
Sure.
The first one is, can you tell us more about the tape you developed? Why is it your favorite?
That tape is actually... It's 91022. It's a tape that actually works at high temperatures. And as you can appreciate, things are running hotter, like our devices and things like that. So sometimes you need tapes that can survive those high temperatures. So that was one aspect of that tape. The other aspect that was the cool part in my mind was that we did it with just one liner around it rather than two liners. So previously, all attempts have had two liners, and liners mean things that you actually throw away. And all the projects that I work on have very strong sustainability goals. So I was always like, why do we have two liners? I want to do this with one liner. And that creates a huge technical challenge. And we were able to solve that challenge. So in that shot, actually, Janet is unraveling that role, and we're admiring the fact that we were able to crack the technical problem and do it with one liner. So 50% reduction of waste.
Wow, hopefully 3M gave you some extra special award for that.
Actually, we did.
See, perfect. Another question is, how has advocating for science been during a year when you can't travel like you used to?
Very good question. I have been doing so many events, it's not even crazy because you gain so much time. You don't have the face-to-face contact, but can you imagine, traveling to China, traveling to India, traveling to Brazil? It takes time. Now we don't, have that travel time. So I have been doing events like you wouldn't believe. So this week itself, we had 8 events, and they were around the world. So it's in a way it's difficult, but in a way it's easy. And then of course you change the narrative in your head. This is the best we can do at this time. And then when you change that narrative, then it changes everything. So
that's great. It's always good to see people come up with, especially R&D people, right? Come up with creative solutions to problems. And I think that is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
Another question, if you're ready, what are some ways we can work to support underserved communities to support equity in science? I mean, you talked a lot about that. I'm just curious if you could elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so. When you think you have created a solution, think again. That's my learning. A simple example would be we were excited about having a certain event. And then you realize that if you do that event in 3M Center, there are many people who don't have the ability to even come to the center. How are they going to get there? The cars are already taken by their parents. The school system does not have buses for them and things like that. So it is really a process of rethinking the whole spectrum as you know it, and think again. And then you will be first really befuddled by this inequity that exists, and then you have to start looking for solutions. So it's been really eye-opening for me to sort of think about those things. So we have lots of programs like the Visiting Wizards at 3M, which is great because the people actually go to the schools and they do the science show, if you will, over there. So rethinking the concept from a point of privilege to sort of from a point of underserved communities is actually a very enlightening, humbling, and illuminating experience. I highly recommend it. And then you will realize why I say we need to give voice to STEM, because it doesn't take somebody who is a scientist to actually volunteer or help organize or inspire or champion or engage with children.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I mean, obviously, that's why Randy and I are here. I think that this is really, really important. So Absolutely. One last question. We had time for one last one is, and I'm very curious of this, what got you interested in STEM in high school?
If I was to give the honest answer, my parents said so. I was very honest about it. I did not think that I was a science and engineering type. I grew up in India on the campus of the oldest engineering institution in all of Asia. My dad was a university professor. Everybody around me was a STEM professional on that campus. And it was just understood that the kids are going to become engineers. And I was like, okay, I guess I don't have a choice. And that is exactly why I feel so passionate about the role that I am in. We would not have the 70 patents. We would not have me in this role, because I did understand that STEM was actually very consistent with what I wanted to do. It just wasn't the way it was talked about. And who did STEM? Because I looked around, obviously there were no women there, and there were no women even in my graduate school. So the idea that STEM isn't being talked about appropriately and we are missing out so many creative ideas is why I feel passionate about this role. So to be honest, that's the answer.
Well, thank you for the honest answer. As a fellow woman in a man's world, I mean, I have been the only female R&D VP at both, or first, I should say, not only at both St. Jude Medical and now Boston Scientific. So
you go, girl.
We go, girl. Right? Sorry, Randy. Anyway, thank you for thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your incredible remarks today. I'm still shocked by the number you threw out of, 40% of people don't think they would be better off if science existed. I just can't even get my mind around that. So,
and that number right there is what got me to this role, because I was like, I don't believe this. We got to change that. So there we go. And all the kids who participated, you are going to change that. So thank you.
Thank you. Randy, I'm going to turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jayshree. Thank you, Steph. Appreciate the input, and great to hear from two incredible women leaders. To welcome our next speaker, Caitlin France. She has received 2 scholarships from the AHA, including the Helen N. and Harold B. Shapira undergraduate scholarship, which is a local scholarship, and the Empowered to Serve Scholarship, a national program selecting just 10 recipients each year. Caitlin will share about the development of her medical bracelets and how her engagement with the American Heart Association has allowed her to evolve this work. Welcome, Caitlin.
Hello, everyone. I am so honored and privileged to be here today. I'd like to start off by acknowledging all of the fantastic support that I've been so fortunate to have, especially from the American Heart Association. I definitely grew up in a different world that was not STEM focused. When I was young, I thought women could be nurses, farmers, and teachers. And it's not saying that these careers aren't worthwhile. It's just that I thought this was all you could do. I never saw another woman in STEM, and especially not someone in a biomedical engineering role like what I do now. But the cool part about what I do and why I think talks like these are so important is I'm here today to tell you that it doesn't take much. It just takes an idea and a willingness to learn more. Because what got me started in science was the YouTube ad that changed my life. And if you'll go ahead to the next slide. So when I was a freshman in high school, I was in a higher level science class because I loved school, I loved learning. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with that as a career. But while we were watching a video, I think it was Mythbusters or just something fun in my class, I saw an ad popped up that advertised medical bracelets. And they advertised these for over $100 and said it was a good deal for 4 lines of text. And I remember looking at that and thinking, that can't help in a medical emergency. That only tells you what's wrong. It won't tell you how to help. And that's something that's always driven me is how can I help? So I remember turning to my science teacher and saying, you know, I think I can make something better than that. And my 9th grade science teacher, Miss Ranger, looked me in the eye to inspire for years from this point. He said, if you think you can make the world a better place, why aren't you doing that right now? And for me, it was really the catalyst. It wasn't here's a huge, gigantic problem you need to solve. It's how to make something small that could have a big impact. I spent time researching different medical bracelets and different medical technology, and today I produce the Medical Assistance via Quick Response Code, or MAQR, as in don't meet your maker, meet your MAQR. And our bracelets can hold a nearly limitless amount of information, yet can be produced for under $5. And not only do they look better, not only do they work better, but as a research and design specialist, they are scientifically proven to provide more accurate care and more information as a whole in medical emergencies. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the information that we can include can be whatever you need it to be. It can range from allergies to diseases, conditions. But the example that I always use is a really fun one. So I am now a college student. I'm only 20 years old, but one of my favorite examples is when you're at your first week of school and you've made all sorts of cool new friends and you guys all want to go and check out a cool new restaurant, but that's a lot of cool new things, right? So I always order my favorite food, which is deep fried pickles. Of course, I'm a good Midwesterner. And the scenario that I like to set up is imagine that you take one bite of this deep fried Midwestern delicacy and your friends are like, wow, those must be good pickles. She's in a food coma. But it's actually anaphylactic shock, which is the medical term for a severe allergic reaction. And while I don't actually have this, in some severe cases, this can lead to death in as little as 10 minutes because of throat closure, organ shutdown. It's just not a good situation. So with a normal medical bracelet, you just have 4 lines of text to help. But with this, you see what's happening, how you can help, detailed steps on different tools that you need, information on emergency contacts, and it really just provides that additional help to help you help others in a medical emergency, something that doesn't really exist on the market today. Go ahead to the next slide. Now, this isn't to say that I started off with an amazing product that worked beautifully. My first bracelet I ever made, as you can see by the picture here, consisted of nothing more than a piece of paper with a QR code that I learned how to code myself, duct taped to a watch that I stole from my grandpa. But it wasn't so much about what it looked like, it was about what it could do and how excited I was about what it could do. A lot of science and a lot of success comes down to how passionate are you about what you are doing and what could the impacts be. So this first year was the first time that I ever really did hard science, really got to do data analysis. And when I saw that the results of my trials using these medical bracelets were statistically significant, I remember thinking, this is what science is like, and this is what I want to do forever. Next slide. And all of my, so being from a very small town, I was with more cows, people, so I didn't really have a lot of access to any grants or anything, which is why the work that AHA does is so important and critical, because a lot of what I had to do was independent. I learned how to code and weld and data management and all of these skills that normal 17-year-olds really don't have any interest in. But to me, this was such cool and exciting work, and to think that what I was doing really had the impact to help save lives. Next slide. And what I really began to learn, especially in my senior year, so when I was 18, you don't have to do science by yourself. I think that's the other thing that people really tend to think about this is like, you have to have these big ideas and you have to do it all yourself, and that's what defines success. When really it's about creating together. How can we advance science as a community? And so at this stage, I started talking to professors and professionals and really got more help, and I was able to do so much more when I was willing to share my ideas. And one of the coolest parts about my entire experience has been not only getting to do all of this cool stuff, but my favorite part has been getting to talk to students like you and getting you guys excited and imagining a future where not only you don't have to work this hard, all of these things are going to be available for you, and all you need to do is be excited about it. I remember at my first International Science Fair, we had a public viewing session where second graders from the community got to come in and see what we were doing. And my favorite experience I've ever had as a citizen scientist has been when a second grade girl came up to my project and spent a lot of time trying on my beautiful bracelet and asking all sorts of questions. And I remember her asking me, can the bracelet be pink? And I told her it could be pink and if that's what she wanted. And she was so excited about that because her brother had peanut allergies. And this was something that she could really see happening and see herself using. And as she walked away over to her mom asked her, you know, what did you think? What was your favorite part? And she pointed over at my project and she said, Mommy, I want to be like her when I get grown up. And to me, that's what science, that's what we're doing is so important, as we can get you guys excited about this from a young age and get you involved in the field. Go ahead to the next slide. It's so important for you guys to see that, you know, you don't have to have this gigantic, well thought out plan. I have had many different failures. I've had to go through many different revisions. I've been entered in some really cool things and I've lost, not even qualified, but it's all about trying the different things and getting excited about it and thinking about what you could do. And for every failure that I hit, I try not to think, you know, that's it, I'm done. My advisor likes to call it research because you have to keep doing it again and again. And the other words that have really driven me are two different quotes. So First of all, we all do better when we all do better. When we create things that work to improve the world for everyone, it promotes an equity that really doesn't exist in communities like mine. I remember making these bracelets and thinking about how it could directly impact my hometown, because our ambulances can take more than 45 minutes to arrive, and that oftentimes the first people helping in a medical emergency are family members and neighbors and not trained medical professionals, and how scary and overwhelming that can be. And by just creating something where you take a picture, help us one way, and you can drastically improve someone's chances of survival just by wearing something that I created. Those words and the other ones that when I think about what is my mission here as a citizen scientist, and that would be what we create today is the inspiration of tomorrow, and what a beautiful day tomorrow will be. So I'm so excited to be here today, and please reach out to me. I get so excited about other students' science work, and I want to help you guys as much as I can. So if you ever want to talk about what I'm doing now, or just have questions about how I got here, I'd love to talk to you more, because I've gotten to do research thanks to grants from the American Heart Association and getting to study at the University of Minnesota Duluth. I get to work in a lab that 3D prints working heart models. I work in our pharmacy school where we get to do drug gene interaction for children. So we're changing the face of medicine in real time. And I get to work in our med school where I get to play with ticks and ticks bite us, because Lyme's disease is no fun. And I really think the other important thing to remember is that it's so good to try everything. Like, you don't just have to do science. Like in high school, I did theater, and I, to this day, am still involved in the arts. And I'm also a German major. I think language and being a complete person can add so much to your experience and can really affect the way that you view the world. So in conclusion, thank you guys so much for listening, and I am excited about what I do, but I can't wait to see what you do in the future. Thank you.
Incredible, Caitlin. Thank you for joining us, sharing your story, and inspiring the students participating today. Caitlin will continue her work bridging the gaps in health equity within Minnesota using her funding from the American Heart Association.
So I'm sad to say that this brings us to the end of our week-long series on advancing sciences. Now we're going to move forward to our grant challenge, which is an exciting spotlight here. This year has been especially challenging for teachers and students, but we're thrilled to have so many students join us for our first virtual Advancing Sciences event. The Apple Valley, give a shout out to them in your head right now, all-girls robotic team, the Iron Maidens, submitted a video for our grant challenge. I'm happy to announce, actually Randy and I are happy to announce, that we will be supporting their efforts with a $1,000 grant. Congratulations, Apple Valley High School, and go Iron Maidens.
Hey, fantastic. Congratulations, Apple Valley Iron Maidens. We'd like to thank everyone who has attended this year as we adapt to our new digital world, especially the students. Thank you for your curiosity, innovation, and thoughtful participation.
We would also like to thank our sponsors of this year's program, the executive leadership team that spent long hours laying out the program,
this world's got a hold of me, it's trying to bring me down, trying to pull me in without making a sound. I'm trying to move on, no matter how hard I try. I just keep falling, falling, falling behind. You never let me go, no matter how far I run. When I thought I was lost, gotta keep my path true. Focus on the one thing that leads me back to you. I'm fighting uphill battles every step that I take. I just keep going, 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 never gonna break. You never let me go, no matter how far I run. When I thought I was lost, but in you I'm found. When the darkness tries to hold my weary soul, I reach out to you and you say, just press on, just press on.
Now I'm moving forward, following your design. I'm not looking back, I'm leaving my past behind. Now I'm moving forward, following your design. I'm not looking back, I'm leaving my past behind.
But I'm moving forward, following your design. I'm not looking back, I'm leaving my past behind. She never let me go, no matter how far I run. When I thought I was lost, but in you I'm found. When the darkness tries to hold my weary soul, I reach out to you.
From all of us at the American Heart Association, we just wanted to say thank you.